Greetings. My name is Mike Levis, and I'm an instructor with the Mount Hood Ski Patrol Avalanche Program. The topic of this presentation is organized rescue. In previous modules, we've covered self-rescue and companion rescue. This module builds on many of the concepts presented in these previous modules and extends them to include the scenario where trained rescue resources from Search and Rescue, Ski Patrol, or the Sheriff's Department come on scene. You will get much hands-on experience with organized rescue and a chance to polish your skills during the field sessions. Please note this scenario is particularly important to us as ski patrollers. There have been situations on Mount Hood where avalanches have destroyed ski lifts. Luckily, they were after hours and the lifts were not in use. If the lifts had been operating, the ski patrol would have been first on scene, and the techniques discussed in this module would have been critical to saving lives. We're going to start with a brief discussion about what organized rescue is and how it differs from companion rescue. We will then discuss the incident command system. From there, we will get into probe lines. Probe lines are basic search techniques that can only be used when you have the resources that an organized rescue team can bring to an event. We'll wrap with a brief review of strategic shoveling. So what is organized rescue? When we discuss companion rescue, we said that companion rescue uses only the resources and people and equipment that were available in your immediate group. Organized rescue is the scenario where other outside resources are brought on scene to assist or lead the rescue efforts. These resources are typically resources that have been trained and equipped to manage multi-victim accident scenarios, ski patrol, search and rescue teams, or sheriff's department rescue teams. In an organized rescue situation, resources will usually come in two or more waves. First on scene will be a hasty team. This team will arrive as soon as possible after an incident with basic rescue equipment. The hasty team will assess the situation, number of victims, scene safety, and other requirements, and start the rescue process. The hasty team will be followed by a larger team with more people and resources and any specialized equipment needed for the current incident. If the avalanche occurred in the permit area of a ski resort, ski patrol will most likely be the first responders, and there will be no companion rescue. In this case, organized rescue principles would be in play at the beginning of the rescue process. The good news with organized rescue is that there'll be lots of resources available. Lots of people to search, maybe avalanche dogs to assist in the search, RICO equipment, snowmobiles for transport, and so forth. The downside is time. Getting the organized rescue process going takes time. Most organized rescue situations will use the incident command system for managing the rescue scenario. This is a scalable management system defined by the U.S. government for multi-jurisdictional disaster response situations. It is used by all rescue agencies and ensures all agencies use a common framework and language in rescue operations. Once on scene, many of the companion rescue principles come into play. Beacon searches, spot probing of likely areas, etc. One technique that is unique to organized rescue are probe lines. Probe lines are used to locate victims that have not been located after beacon searches and avi-dog searches have been completed. This is really the only option if victims are not wearing beacons and avi-dogs are not available. As you will see later, probe lines are very time-consuming. This slide, I think, clearly shows the difference between companion rescue and organized rescue. As we mentioned earlier, companion rescue uses only the resources available to the party caught in the avalanche. The goal is to find and extricate the victim or victims in 15 minutes or less, while survival rates are still high. Organized rescue involves many more resources, but as we mentioned previously, at the cost of time to organize those resources and get on scene. The goal of an organized rescue is to find and extricate all victims within 90 minutes. Unfortunately, the survival statistics for organized rescue are not good. Too often, organized rescue is a body recovery instead of a rescue. The incident command system is the basic tool used for organized disaster rescue efforts. It was developed by the U.S. government and is managed by FEMA. It can be used for rescue situations of all sizes and complexities, avalanches, forest fires, floods, etc. As the slide indicates, Using this system allows for a coordinated response from multiple rescue agencies, for example, Ski Patrol and the Sheriff's Department. It establishes a common management structure, a common processes for incident management, and a common language to facilitate communications. Let's watch a brief video from FEMA that provides an overview of the ICS.
Disaster can strike anytime, anywhere. It takes many forms: a hurricane, an earthquake, a tornado, a flood, a fire, or a hazardous spill, or an act of terrorism. An incident can build over days or weeks, or hit suddenly, without warning. A poorly managed incident response can undermine our safety and well-being. With so much at stake, we must effectively manage our response efforts. Although most incidents are handled locally, partnerships among local, tribal, state, and federal agencies, as well as non-governmental and private sector organizations, may be required. As partners, we must respond together in a seamless, coordinated fashion. The Incident Command System, or ICS, helps ensure integration of our response efforts. ICS is a standardized, on-scene, all-hazards approach to incident management. ICS allows all responders to adopt an integrated organizational structure that matches the complexities and demands of the incident, while respecting agency and jurisdictional authorities. Although ICS promotes standardization, it is not without needed flexibility. For example, the ICS organizational structure can expand or contract to meet incident needs. In this course, you'll learn ICS principles, and more importantly, you'll learn to interface better with your response partners.
This slide lists some of the benefits of the Incident Command System. Many of these topics we've covered before. For example, the first bullet refers to clarifying a chain of command. We've talked about the importance of having a leader in rescue situations to manage the overall process. It's the same thing. FEMA offers an introductory online course, ICS 100, that I would like you to all take. Go to the URL on this page and take the class and print out the certificate. It takes about 1 to 2 hours and it's free. Note that this is also an NSP requirement. So if you've already done this part of in your ski patrol training, you're good to go. If you have not, please take the class now before our field session. So let's dig a little deeper into the practical aspects of an organized rescue. As we've mentioned previously, it's key that there be a leader in all rescue scenarios. In organized rescue, this will typically be the most senior person on scene, the most senior person on the paid staff for a rescue in the permit area of a ski resort, or the designated person from the Sheriff's Department if rescue elsewhere in the backcountry. The leader will do many of the same things that we've discussed in companion rescue. The leader will need to assess scene safety and the best access to the site of the avalanche. The leader will need to allocate resources to beacon searching. The leader will need to allocate resources to mark the boundary of the accident scene. The leader will need to assign people to teams for probing and shoveling, including spot probing likely catchment areas. The leader will need to assign resources for medical triage, and the leader will need to assign someone to manage transport and communication. The picture on this slide is the ICS management structure. Note, not all of these blocks will be needed in all scenarios, and the complexity of the blocks can scale with the requirements of the situation at hand. In our field work, we'll practice organized rescue scenarios. You should try and fill different roles during the different scenarios so you have some sense of what the role entails. This slide should look familiar. We covered this in companion rescue for the scenario where your group was going to assist another group that had been caught in an avalanche. In an organized rescue scenario, the leader is going to want to ask the same questions of any witnesses. Where were the victims last seen? How many victims are there? Were they wearing beacons? Were they skiing or snowboarding? Do any of the clues look like equipment belonging to the victims? One thing that's critically important is to not let the witnesses leave the scene. A common technique is to assign one resource as a scribe and witness wrangler to write down all the answers from witnesses, to get names and phone numbers of all the witnesses, and to keep the witnesses on scene for as long as possible. So the leaders checked scene safety, assigned resources to various roles, and interviewed the witnesses. Now the rescuers can start the immediate search. Again, as in companion search, it's very important to make sure all rescue team members and witnesses have beacons off or in search mode. No one should have a beacon in transmit mode. So you've done the beacon search, spot probed clues and likely catchment areas, and still have not located the victims. At this point, it's time to form a probe line and methodically probe the slide area. Note, as the slide indicates, this technique comes into play only if victims are not wearing beacons, when all other search techniques have been exhausted, and when there are enough resources to form an effective probe line. Correct technique is critical when forming a probe line. If the probers are not spaced correctly or the probing is not uniform, the probers will miss portion of the search area and victims could be missed. A guide-on cord is used to help maintain a consistent spacing between probers and a consistent probe pattern. The guide-on cord consists of a rope with contrasting colored knots or flagging spaced along the cord. Probers stand at one colored marker, the red knot for example. The probers probe in a left, center, right sequence at the location of the colored flags. The leader calls out the sequence: probe left, probe center, probe right, advance. The probers probe when the commands are given. Note that 2 people are manning the ends of the guide-on cord. If there are insufficient resources, the leader can man one of the positions at the end of the rope. Start at the bottom of the slide zone and work uphill to the last seen area. Anything that can be done to eliminate areas of the slide zone using clues or other data will speed up this process considerably. Also note, depending on the size of the slide path, the probe line may need to be repeated in lanes to cover the slide path completely. Typically, this will involve probe lanes that overlap slightly to make sure no area is missed. If you don't have a guide-on cord, an alternative is to measure the distance between probe line members using outstretched arms. Using this technique, probers also have to estimate correct locations to probe in a left, center, right pattern as well. This technique is somewhat error-prone since not everyone's arms are the same length, and estimating the distance to advance and the probe location can miss some spots and create gaps in coverage. So use a guide-on cord if possible. The probe line leader has a very critical role to play in this whole process. The leader supervises deployment of the guide-on line. Is it set up correctly? Is it taut? The probe line leader also supervises the probe deployment. Are all the probers standing in the correct location? Are they all probing in the correct sequence and deeply enough? It is important that the probes are all in alignment and go to a uniform depth. If not, the likelihood increases of missing a victim. As you can see in the picture, the probe line leader is looking down the probe line to see that all probes are in a line in the correct location before proceeding. The probe line leader needs to check in on the probe line team members to make sure they're okay. Are they getting tired or hypothermic? If one of the team members needs a break, someone else can rotate in. People in the probe line need to focus on probing in the correct sequence, to the correct depth, in alignment with other probers. Probers should listen for sounds as they are probing and look for differences in feel of the snow. Ice layers will be very hard and need to be penetrated. Bodies will feel fleshy, kind of like a backpack. If a prober gets a potential strike, they should leave the probe in place, announce the strike, and get a spare probe from one of the support team to continue manning the probe line. There are several common mistakes we see in probe lines. The first and most common mistake is that all probes are not in a line. If the probes are not in a line, or if the probes are not vertical to the surface, the probers may miss a victim. The probe leader or guide-on line handler should be watching for this. The second common mistake is poor guide-on line management. Allowing the line to become slack means the ends are moving closer together. Or not advancing the line in a straight path will result in a probe line that meanders over the slide path. Either of these mistakes can result in missing buried victims. Let's talk briefly about shovelers. Shovelers follow the probe line. They carry extra probes and supplies. In the event of a strike, they hand the prober a new probe so the probe line can keep moving, and they dig to extricate the victim. The shoveling technique we discussed in companion rescue, the V-shaped wedge where the lead shoveler moves the snow back in a paddling motion and the lead shovelers rotate every couple of minutes, applies here as well. So that brings us to the end of our module on organized rescue. Again, you'll get a chance to practice all this during the field session. Thank you for your time.